what I think the organization should do is fix the corporation first. There are some fractures. There are some issues with it. We need to regroup the organization and get our house in order, financially, organizationally, with having headquarters take better care and listen more to the organization and the membership.
And welcome to the Firearms Nation podcast. And tonight we're going to have on Luigi Li, and we're going to be talking about his run for USPSA president. This is also a live show. For those of you who are tuning in, I thank you. And this will also be replayed on the actual podcast for audio. And then, of course, a edited video version of this goes up as well, usually Friday or Saturday. But I just want to say a couple things. First of all, for those of you that don't know, USPSA, it is, the practical shooting sport, has tens of thousands of members. It is a great way to get out there and get better at shooting skills. But also, since, there are multiple candidates running, I think there's 7 candidates running for president. I'm not having all the candidates on. I mean, that's not the nature of the Firearms Nation podcast, but I saw Luigi at a match, and we started talking, and I said, you know what, I'd like to bring you on just because I think it's an important thing. So yeah, he's going to be coming on. Something else, I don't know if you can hear, I'm having a massive storm right now, and you can hear the rain coming on the window. If the power goes, if the connection gets severed somewhere or another, or if the connection just sucks, let's just be mindful of that. I'm in Florida. We're having a massive weather event going on. The past 2 days have just been crazy with the storms. So those of you in Area 6, which is a USPSA area down in the south, you know what I'm talking about. So anyways, we're going to start with the show. And Luigi, thank you for coming on the Firearms Nation podcast.
Thanks for having me, brother.
No problem. I think it was fortuitous. We were at the Shoot Sig match held at the Deep 50 gun range out in Naples, and I got to shout out to Shannon. I thought he did a great job with that. I think it's in its infancy, but it's a great idea. I can hear in my headphones. I can hear the rain coming through. But yeah, that was a very fun event. And you got to shoot it too, I think.
Yeah, I did. I did shoot it, and I did pretty well over there.
I didn't see the scores. How did you do? And he froze already.
Won 4 divisions, took second. I won 4 of the divisions, and I took second in the other 2.
Oh, no kidding! Congratulations, that's great. It's up on Practice Score. I'll have to go take a look. The whole point of the thing was to have fun, and I think they've got something there. I've shot the Glock matches before; those are good.
It's a great event. I mean, yeah, it's a new sport. It's a new thing. Shannon has a lot of experience running matches, and I think it'll be something to look forward to. You're going to have growing pains, but it was great. I mean, I showed up in flip-flops and had a blast.
Yeah, terrific. So, all right, before we get into some of these questions that I have about being USPSA president, what's your background? I mean, when did you first start shooting?
I started shooting competitively in 2013.
But not competitively. When did you first start to shoot?
I never had guns in the house. Family doesn't do the gun stuff. Never really shot. No, hey, go out in the backyard and plink with a BB gun. Didn't do any of that stuff. I turned 21. And then I was legally allowed to buy a handgun in the state of Florida. So I got my CCW and bought a gun.
Okay. And how did you learn to get better? Because I mean, I seen you shoot. You're pretty good. So how did you get better?
Well, I bought a gun and did the usual thing. Every few months, buy a box of 2, go to the range, put some holes in paper, or try to put holes in paper. I wasn't good. 5 yards, I might put half of them in the paper, Um, and then I moved to California for a little bit. Couldn't really shoot out there. And then I was like, oh, how do I get better without actually shooting? And took to the internet, found Dry Fire, found some of these organizations. And then when I moved back to Florida, it just so happened that our local club is right up the street. So that was about 10 years ago, and put a lot of time and effort over there and got better.
Well, full disclosure, we shoot South Florida Pistol Club, and I became a member probably in 2011. So that's how long I started shooting competitively. I gotta tell you, it wasn't just shooting a club that made me better. So what did you do to get better?
A lot of rounds downrange, a lot of time on the gun, and dry fire, live fire. As you know, since this is getting pretty bad. Yeah, you do a lot. Club itself does 8 to 9 events a month. So I was on the range just here at Marco Park was, 2-3 times a week. And then, traveling to Hanson, traveling to Okeechobee, Malabar. There was a lot of shooting involved. And then training on top of that, dry fire on top of that. There was a lot of dedication back in the day.
And did you take any classes with anybody that we would know of?
It took me a while to actually take classes with people that we know of. My first class was probably 2016, 2017 with Ron Brown. It was just 4 of us. We did a private lesson with him. And then I think the following year I did a 3-day intensive with Max Michel. And then from there, it's just after that, I was pretty much on the level where it wasn't like they're out of the league. Yeah, I heard that one over here too. But it was just more of these guys are my peers. They're not like these elite athletes that we had nothing in common. So it was something where I could spitball ideas off of them and do some training with them. And it's great to be able to say, hey, are you free? Let's get together and just go train at the range. Speedy Lesger Murdoch, he's down here too, and I shot with him a lot back in the day. And just emulating the really good guys that's around you, getting that pace that they can put down and see if you can keep up it was very important for me to get better.
Well, the nice thing about Florida, at least now, is that there's so many opportunities to shoot and to compete, and great shooters are down here. Like I said, when I got in 2011, there weren't that many places to go. I mean, primarily when we did stuff, it was at Universal. Occasionally we had like Area 6 up at St. Augustine. But now, of course, there was Punta Gorda. But now there's so many, it doesn't matter where you are in the state of Florida, there are a lot of it. I think we're almost on par with, Arizona in terms of how many great shooters and clubs that we have down here.
There's a few places in the country that have a very focused, high level skill set. I don't think anything's going to come close to Arizona. Just Rio Salado is the mecca. I mean, that's old school. That's where, the Desert Classic was what Area 2, they used Desert Classic as their area match. That match has been going on for close to 40 years. So Florida as a whole, we had a lot of shooting. Back in the 90s, we had FIPT. Florida Open I think it was the 25th year this year. So they've been doing a lot and have a lot of shooting down here, high level skill. It's one of the good places to be, especially for shooting.
So I know that you were president of our club, and now you are looking to be president at USPSA. So my question is, why would you want to be president of USPSA. And, the reason I ask that is that I know that it's always, you got to look into motivations on why someone wants to do something. And because you're putting yourself out there for sure, but what's the genesis of that desire to be president of an organization that has, up to like 40,000 members?
Yeah, it's a pretty large organization. I mean, the sport itself, I love the sport. I mean, I fell in love when I first shot up my first match. I was a lifetime member within the year. Like I knew that this is what I was going to want to do for a very long time. And I want to make sure that I can keep doing this for a very long time. And wanting to run is out of necessity. I mean, I saw that there were some things that were going on that I didn't like the direction. There are some issues that I felt like were handled differently than I would have rather had. I mean, for those, I know you have a lot of non-competitive listeners to your podcast, but USPSA is broken up into 8 different areas. Every area has their director, which is their representative for on the board of directors. So I would call my area director, and they'd say, "Oh, okay, I'm taking your sentiments into consideration." And I've had a very close relationship with the past 4 of my area directors. So in the past 10 years, I've cultivated a lot, and it just felt like I wasn't being heard. Because once you're in that position for 3 years. Well, now I think it's 4, depending on it changed a little while ago. But it takes quite a lot to get you out of there. I mean, there's an election. But I wasn't happy with how I was being represented. Now Area 6 is up for re-election this year as well. So that opens up tomorrow. But there were good candidates there. I trusted the guys that put in their names in the ring there. And what that I want to run for Accelerator. I didn't make away from those guys because I knew they were going to do a good job. I just didn't see anybody stepping up for the presidential seat. So when I actually put in my petition, I was the first one to put in the petition, and that was 6 weeks before the deadline. And it's open for a year before, so it was open for almost 11 months. I wasn't happy with the way it was presented, or presenting. Sorry.
Okay. So where do you see the president? Because listen, I'm not the most USPSA guy out there, meaning that I know there's active participation. I enjoy the sport. It's a great hobby. It's supported me personally in my everyday work. But I know there's people who are heavily invested into it. And there's some, look, I would say 20% of USPSA is heavily invested in, and then there's the 80% that just like to show up and shoot. And it's definitely geared towards the 20%. But we'll get to that in a second. But in terms of, I keep a loose eye on what's happening there because, I see it on Facebook. I see it on, other posts, or at a match, people are talking. But my question is, first of all, is USPSA broken?
USPSA the sport, or USPSA the organization?
Well, the sport continues. I think it'll continue no matter what. But I would say the organization.
Is it broken? No. Is it fractured and on the precipice of breaking? I think there's merit to that statement.
Wow. And just like from your lips to God's ears, it was like perfect timing for that statement. That's going to have to go to
the man upstairs is watching.
Yes, we're having fun during the storm. Okay, so yeah, it's okay. So maybe it's fractured. Okay, it's not a full-on compound break. It's a hairline fracture, but it seems like
There,
we're having a hard time with the presidency.
yeah, the past two elected presidents have been removed from office. Um, and in the past, I think, what, 2.5 years, uh, we elected president in power than we have a actual elected. I find an issue with that.
Hey, do me a favor, just repeat that because you kind of broke up on that one.
Oh, we got another thunderstorm.
Yeah.
But I think it was the past, somebody ran the numbers the other day, and I think it's the past 2.5 years. We've had more time of having an unelected president in power than an elected official. If you actually add up the time that they were sitting in office.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's absurd.
Why do you think we're having this problem?
Everybody has their theories, but unless you were in the room when those decisions were made, you'll never know the full story. And unfortunately, the board of directors have recently had an infatuation with something called executive sessions, or so-called or closed-door meetings, depends on what organization you're in, and they've been using that. Some meetings that is more longer than what the regular meeting takes, which also our bylaws specifically state what issues or when that could be used, and I find it ridiculous.
What do you think? Because I know that they made some change to the presidency. Where do you see the president fitting in this USPSA organization?
Well, Brian Conley says it the best. The president is a glorified match director right now, because that's pretty much what the position was neutered to. The only issue that I have with that statement and that verbiage is the president is still a member of the board, and he still does have a vote. So he's one of 9. He is still the chairperson of the board, meaning he's in charge of the agenda and he's in charge of the minutes. And he's also the regional director for IPSC. So those of you who are listening that might not be familiar, USPSA is the United States regional affiliate of the international body known as IPSC. So the president is the regional director for that. He does get a vote in all the international dealings. So, yeah, match director, but he does have a lot more. He does have a lot more power than just that.
You have some IPSC experience, right? You went to the World Shoot.
Yes, I was part of the U.S. team for production optics. We took the that the were really strong right out the. Yeah, my first national match was in 2015. I went to the Pan American in Brazil, and I've been trying to hit up at least 1 or 2 international matches a year. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But when you start adding up the dollar cost of traveling to a dirt pit in the middle of nowhere in the U.S. versus a dirt pit in the middle of nowhere but another country, and the cost is the same, do you want to go see the world, or do you just want to see another state? So I do enjoy shooting internationally. It's always fun. You always get treated mostly well, and you get to see things and eat a lot of stuff. I love eating. But yeah, yeah, I do. You have some experience with international stuff.
Very cool. In Florida we have Ipswich Nationals, and so pretty much in terms of shooting sports, that's the extent of my Ipswich experience. But it is different.
You have more Ipswich experience than the majority of the almost 40,000 members that we have, because that is the only sanctioned major match that we've had in the U.S. in a very long time, except for last year we had the Pan American. Last year we had the Pan American, a level 4. This year we had the Extreme, which was a level 3, and we did have the World Shoot here in 2014, I believe.
It was either 14 or 15. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
at
17 was France. 17 was France, and 14 was France.
14. Okay.
But I mean, I was shooting for a year and change. I did do that one.
It's great. I love that kind of match. It's very interesting because it's a little bit more strategic in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think anyone who is in the shooting sport should definitely come to the Ipswich Nationals and experience that. You know, you kind of get a little flavor of that with the Florida Open, or it used to be, the Florida Open, because there's a lot of international people that come to that as well, because it's a fun match. Also, you have some of those special rules. We'll talk about that. So where do you see USPSA as an organization going, or should it go anywhere, or should it just stay where it's at and kind of rein in where it needs to be in order to get more aligned?
Like with regards to IPSC and the different rule sets, or just as an organization by itself?
Well, as an organization by itself, I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about, having some Ipswich style stuff in it, but I'm curious, there's a lot of expansion in the past couple of years between, starting with carry optics to now limited optics, and just, the way things are going. Do we need to keep going further and further and further? And actually, PCC was part of that years ago. But do we need to keep going further and further and further, or should we kind of like hold the reins, regroup, and again, you say we're a little fractured. Let's heal those fractures.
So the sport is fine. The sport's going to be fine. Like if USPSA defuncts tomorrow, we're still going to go shoot a match with some oddball rule set. Everyone's going to have their own. I mean, look at what happened with 3-gun. 3-gun Nation came in. They made a standardized rule set. A lot of people joined up. A lot of people shot it. They mismanaged some things and they went defunct. But there are still 3-gun matches. There were 3-gun matches before. There are 3-gun matches after. I mean, they just had the Duskin 3-gun event, which was huge and phenomenal, using a rule set that they made themselves. So if the organization goes away, the sport will still be here. Action shooting is not going to go away as long as we keep fighting for our rights as citizens. What I think the organization should do is fix the corporation first. There are some fractures. There are some issues with it. We need to regroup the organization and get our house in order, financially, organizationally, with having headquarters take better care and listen more to the organization and the membership. I mean, the organization was chartered in Delaware. Every single USPSA card carrying member, if they choose to print a card, is a shareholder of the company. The organization is accountable to its membership, not the other way around. So we need to fix that before we decide about doing anything else. We want to expand and stick and keep up with the times. I mean, you're an officer here in Broward County. I mean, optics are pretty much on most duty weapons that I see, like just driving around. And the SWAT guys are the ones that pioneered it over here. So when that transfers over to any patrol guy or duty officer, it's we need to evolve. How we do that is up to the membership. The issues, if the organization is not there, the organization can't keep up. So organization fix structure first, and then we can keep evolving from there.
Okay. So you say things like fix organization. It's almost like you're going to be going into the lion's den when that happens. say you get elected president and now you got to go in front of the board and the managing director. I'm sure everybody on that board is on the internet, so they see things, they hear things. How do you go about, I mean, if you have an idea, how do you go about reining them in and taking control when, like you said before, you're almost like a glorified match director?
So the issue with the statement that you just had is you said all the every board of directors on the internet, they see the things. It's a very thankless job, and the voice of the few can perform what's the word? The majority of people don't care. I mean, like you said, 80% just want to show up and shoot their match. So when you have a small group of people that keep saying the same thing, it turns into this huge echo chamber. And a certain few people can make a quote unquote widespread movement, but it's only, a handful of people, maybe 100, a few hundred, a few thousand. But when you take into consideration the organization itself is at almost 40,000 members, it's a small percentage. Not saying that we shouldn't listen to what that happens, but there have been board members that have gone on record that say they don't go on the internet any longer because they don't want to listen to it, they don't want to hear it, and they just stay out of it. So unless you see them at a match or you have their contact information where you can call them on the phone and say, hey, this is what I think about X, Y, and Z, they don't really notice anything, there's a few that are known that have said that. Now, going into Lions Den, like you said, this year is it's a very important year. USPSA is at a turning point. 2023, you had Area 4, Area 7, and Area 3 changeover. In 2023, so starting 2024, Ted Murphy's not running. So the president will change over, as well as Area 8 is not running for re-election, and Area 5 is not running for re-election, or Area 6 is going to change over. So that's 5 members of the board that will be new. That's majority. So yes, it's a Lions Den as it stands now, but with a majority of the board changing in 365 days, this is the time where change can be effective a lot easier than trying to come in and fighting an army. So if I don't win, whoever comes in, whoever steps in, this is the time that we can really take a look to examine what has happened in the past 3, 4, 5, 6 years, see what the issues were, and try to correct the things that weren't done in the proper manner, so to speak.
Okay, and you mentioned that people haven't, or current area directors don't go on the internet. If you go on social media right now, right today, there's 40,000 people. I'm sure not all of them are on, but a lot of people are on. A lot of people have opinions, and with any organization, there's going to be good opinions and bad opinions, and not everyone's going to like you. Are you prepared for putting yourself in front of basically Facebook or Instagram and taking the slings and arrows?
I've been doing it my whole life, so I think I'm good.
Because I don't mean to interrupt you. Can you just say that again? You broke up.
Oh, I've been doing it my whole life. I mean, I have pretty thick skin, so if it be it as it may, I mean, the position isn't going to be for popularity. The position isn't to be everybody's friend. It's you're the chairman of the board, and you're the representative of the organization, and you're the representative of the membership. So if you can't handle that, if I can't handle that, I never would have even considered putting in a petition to join or to run for the position. So bring it on. Reach out, tell me what we need, and we'll take it in consideration. I mean, I don't think I can call 40,000 people, but we've got other technological features that we have, surveys, email communication. I mean, when was the last survey that we just had the surveys come out a few months ago for limited optics and steel challenge? When you're getting 5%, less than 5% response rate on those, what does that say to the org? And why haven't we had those surveys done in the past? So there's issues, and we need to figure out what those causes are and how to overcome them.
Well, I'll tell you this much, in thinking about this interview and doing research, I went on USPSA's website, and I'll say first and foremost, it's gotten better, because I remember for many, many years, I had a hard time with it, especially in today's day and age. I think it's gotten closer to current technology, but it's still, it's kind of hard to navigate, and I couldn't find any information on any of the board members. I was interested to see who because that's one of those things, like, unless you search out on Facebook the different groups and get into the groups, or read the magazine, which is another issue, but you don't know who's on the board. So I think what I gathered from a lot of people, there's an issue with transparency. People throw that word out a lot. That as we see in our regular politics, that's a big issue, and people are very distrustful now because there's a lack of transparency. I think it kind of bleeds over into this organization. So how do we fix the transparency issue?
So the big thing with the word transparency and how it relates to the organization is it's not per se trust. How do you have trust in a board that may or may not listen to what you have to say? Like, you've been a member for 12 years, something like that, because you joined a few years before I did. You're a pretty tech savvy guy. I mean, you run Firearms Nation. Like, you've got a website, you've got a podcast, you've got all this stuff, and you're having an issue finding information on who your board is, who your area director, your representative is. If you don't have an easier way of accessing the person that's supposed to represent you in that meeting, how do you have trust in the organization that you're being heard, or your club is being heard, or your section is being heard? I mean, when was the last time that you met your section coordinator? When was the last time that you saw your area director? And now my section coordinator is a good friend of mine, and I consider my area director a good friend of mine. But I'm in a position where I've dedicated so much of my time and my life to this that I'm not just the 80% that wants to show up to your local match and shoot. I mean, you and I, we shoot at the same local club. There's people that have been at that club for 20 some odd years that have never gone to another sanctioned event, just that one club. So out of 40 some odd thousand members, or 38,000 members that we have, how much of the organization is that kind of person? We don't know. So one of the things that I have an idea about is doing like an all hands town hall meeting, or we have one every nationals. They usually have a general assembly, discuss some things, but you have to go to a nationals to sit in on that. Sometimes some people live broadcast it, but do something similar every quarter with section coordinators. Because there's only 50 or 60 of those in the country. That's a more manageable subsection. And every section coordinator is supposed to be in charge of between 3 and 15 different clubs. They can disseminate information a little bit better to their constituents. So having something like a section meeting and just what the bigger issues are in the different regions, the different areas. Because, Area 6 is composed of, I think, 6 or 7 states. When was the last time you actually saw your area director? And you traveled to matches. I've seen you all over the state. I've seen you in other states. So not everyone is like you or I, where we travel more often than what the 80% does. If that number is even 80%, because I think it's the same 3,000 or 4,000 members that travel to level 2s and 3s. So it's a little tougher, and there's a lot of issues, but I want to bring the organization back to a place where, again, we are accountable to the membership, not the membership being accountable to the organization. I think it's been backwards.
Okay. This was kind of brought up when we were at the Shoot Sig match. And again, you can give me a generic answer, but I did want to ask this without naming names, but would you propose unbanning members who've been previously banned?
I get asked this question a lot. And the issue with having a specific response is the president can say whatever he wants, but he has to operate under the bylaws that are already set. And currently, there is no recourse for those specific members. Do I agree with all of the decisions that were made in the past 2 years? Absolutely not. Would I do my level best to hear them out and see what the issues were? And there's, again, like I said, within start of 2023 to the start of 2024, there's 5 people on the board that are going to change over that were not involved in any of those banned members. They might come to a different decision today than they would have a year and a half ago. So, do I agree with everybody that was removed? No. Were there some merits to both parties? Yes. Was it the right thing to do? I don't think so.
Well, along those lines too, there's a lot of talk of, a USPSA code of conduct where members can be sanctioned for, what they say online or how they act online, or if they, are nasty online. And my issue with that is a couple of things, but first and foremost is, I don't want to be blunt, but grow a set. It's
do you need a Band-Aid?
Right. We're adults. Granted, a lot of us are type A, because we're in the shooting sports, but not everybody is. But still, it's online. I've been teased,
Bullied.
made fun of, bullied, whatever you want to say, my entire life. It goes in one ear out the other. I could care less. I've been accused of stuff, not accused of stuff, but like harassed online. Especially when I was part of the Team SIG project with the 320. There was a lot of hate that came out from that, and you know what, it comes and goes. But at the end of the day, I'm still, a grown up and I can deal with that. If I say that if you're at a match and you are showing in any sport, they have unsportsmanlike conduct. And if you cross that line, I think I have no problem with you being sanctioned, being you're DQ'd or you're not allowed to come back. And then if it gets to the point where you're trespassed from there, that's fine. That's consequences for your actions at a match. But what you say or what you're talking about, because basically online is the new, water cooler. This is where people gather around to talk about stuff. And you might not be, some days you might be, everyone likes Luigi. Some days everybody hates Luigi. But at the end of the day, who cares? So that's my, if people are thinking of having stuff like that, that bothers me a little bit because I don't think, again, we're talking about that maybe up to 20% of the population that's actually active online. Like the rest of them, there's people that are 20-year veterans of the pistol club and they're just there to shoot. I don't think they give a crap.
They don't. So there has been a lot of talk about, we want a code of conduct or we need a code of conduct. The issue is we have a code of conduct. It's in our rule book. It's in our NROI system. I mean, it's there at a sanctioned USPSA match. There is a code of conduct for unsportsmanlike behavior. There's a code of conduct for narcotics. There's a code of conduct for all that stuff. It's now, if it's something a little more egregious, there are levels of escalation all built into the rule book. It's already built into sport. What happens outside of a USPSA sanction event, unless you sign a contract with USPSA saying they're going to, compensate you for something, why are they going to step into other avenues of your life? I think that's ludicrous. I mean, it's freedom of speech, right? It's not freedom of repercussion, it's freedom of speech. I don't like you, you did something wrong. These are the reasons, X, Y, and Z. If they're valid, they're valid. If they're not valid, somebody's going to chew me out because I didn't do my due diligence. I didn't do my research. But, you're an idiot because of X, Y, and Z. Oh, boo-hoo, my feelings are hurt. Well, what was the thing that went around a few years ago? Here's a safety pin. Go talk to someone. Get out of here with that, unfortunately. It is 2023, so we have to keep an eye on what we say, but it's we have things that regulate our conduct already.
We talked about USPSA.
If it's not sanctioned.
Sorry, I interrupted you because of the storm.
No, that's fine. Go.
You were saying something else? Okay. There's a close relationship, like we talked about briefly, with IPSC and USPSA. One of the things that people have mentioned when they travel overseas is that there is the benefit of, they show up and they shoot, right? It's almost like a gun club where you're paying for people to pace the targets, reset the stage. You just shoot and then you go home. And I know a lot of people have a hard time physically in the summer going out and pasting targets and stuff. I mean, look, I've been in it a long time and you get all sides. Some people get motivated, some people don't get motivated, some people, it keeps them busy. It helps them with their stage plant, whatever, they got stuff going on. But would you ever consider, is that something that you're interested in, and that staff would, you pay, so you're paying $50 to $75 more for a match, but that you're going there and you're just going to have an experience. You're going to focus on your shooting. You don't have to focus on pasting or anything like that. You just, do your thing and not have to worry about it.
So a lot of people think that just because it's an IPSC match, it means you're going to have somebody pasting and resetting for you. That's not quite the case. Depending on the different regions that you go, if you're going to a local match in, let's say you're going to go to Brazil and you're going to shoot a local match, they might not have the support structure at the local event to be able to do the same thing. I mean, it's like, hey, does anybody in any country or any club in the country, our country, that might want to do that? Do they have the support structure to say, hey, we're going to bring some 4-H kids to do our local match? Are there sections that are able to do staff reset? Yeah, you have the Carolinas, they do staff reset. You've got Kentucky, they do staff reset. They've got a great core group of guys that are willing to volunteer and do that, and they have a lot of support. So that's something that is doable. But let's say you're going to shoot an IPSC match in Canada. Yeah, they do have staff reset, but you're also volunteering half of your time while you're shooting your nationals to work your nationals. So the Canadians just a few weeks ago, they had 60 some shooters. Them shot, 30 of them reset. Then they would swip and they would shoot, and then they would reset when they weren't shooting. So yeah, you might not be resetting while you're shooting, but they're resetting regardless. And if you didn't want to reset, then you weren't allowed to shoot the match. So there's a lot of issues and preconceived notions that a lot of people don't understand. It's just you see the guys on the internet say, "Oh, go overseas. They pay people to reset for you." Well, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, I've shot in Brazil where I had to reset my own stages. I've shot in Aruba where I had to reset my own stages. I shot in Ecuador. I had to reset stages too. And these are local and major matches. So it's not always what you hear. That's what's true. Until you go out there and see it for yourself. Education is what we need. Do I like it? Not necessarily. Sometimes I feel like I get iced. So I like it's a lot different. Some people need to keep focus, and resetting is something to keep movement. Is it something that I would want to see the actual organization try to go towards? Again, it's the organization is here to serve the membership, not dictate what the membership needs to do. So if the membership wants to go in that direction, then let's have a conversation about it. Let's have a workshop. Let's figure it out. Town halls, open discussions, surveys, whatever it need to be. Let's let the membership decide, and discuss it with your area director, who is your representative, and go from there.
Yeah, how does the president, the board of directors, get more in touch with the local clubs? Because, like you said, these guys, these 20-year vets, they're not going to these national championships or even area matches. So they're more connected to the local club itself than they are to the actual USPSA organization, which, I mean, it kind of works, but how would you engage them more? Obviously, you said like these town halls, but some of the people that you and I know are not going to be hooking up to a town hall on the internet anytime soon.
So the organizational structure is this. You have the president and the board, right? Every area director is in charge of their area, which is broken up into sections. Every section has a section coordinator who is in charge of their section, who has club coordinators. Club coordinators are not always going to be the match director of that club, but it's a tree, right? It's a trickle down thing. Now, if you were to figure out a better system of having information flow upwards that tree on a more consistent basis, then yeah, hey, I'm the club contact for SFPC, let's say, and I hear things, ruminations on my specific club. Well, why isn't there a better way of communicating with my section coordinator, or skipping the section coordinator and going directly to my area director? It's not that the information's not out there. I mean, we could go, it might be a little difficult because you said you tried finding out who your area director was, but the information is there, even if it's not as accessible. So email your representative, email your area director, email your section coordinator, email your club contact. That information should be all available, if not readily available.
I get that when we're talking about, because my next question is how do we get new members or attract new members? And I get there's a lot of stuff that's happened in the past couple of years with the introduction of PCC, carry optics, now limited optics, the appendix draw, adding flashlights. All these things were done to kind of bring in new members. Is that the route that we need to keep going? Do we need to keep just trying to, add on? Because like limited optics and carry optics are basically almost race guns at this point. I don't see. Go ahead.
I feel pretty strongly about the limited optics and the carry optics thing, just because I don't see a difference in the two guns, in the two divisions. I think it's the same thing essentially. It's instead of having a 4 pound like first trigger pull, I get it down to 1.5 pounds every time, but I get that on the second one. I don't see a difference between a kitted out 2011 and I opted out. But
wait, Luigi,
that's me specifically on that. Yep.
Just repeat. You don't see the difference between a tricked out 2011 and what? Because you broke up on that. I want people to hear it.
A tricked out 2011 versus like a tricked out Shadow 2, they're almost identical guns. I mean, yeah, the grip is a little different, but I mean, the accuracy, the trigger mechanics, everything is going to be almost identical. And like Nils just proved last year that it's not the gun. It's not the gun that's holding you back. So it's one of those things that I feel pretty strongly about that division. I think there's just way too much crossover. And you see it now with limited optics being provisional, that there's people that are competing in limited optics with their 100% carry optics legal gear just because it's a new division. And next week when Carry Optics Nationals rolls around, they're going to use the same gun that they were competing in limited optics at Carry Optics Nationals. And then Nationals is going to be over and they're going to go right back to limited optics. And there's no difference between what they were doing. So I feel pretty strongly about that myself. But the board, they made a decision with how the appendix was going to be written, and they made that. But they've opened up a lot of these racier divisions to bring in new membership, I think. Is it a sign of the times? Yeah, probably. I mean, everyone's going to a dot. Is that the way that we bring in new membership? It could be. I mean, you can see the numbers. We've been growing year over year. We haven't been growing faster. Having that number hasn't gotten as big. Our total membership hasn't gotten as big because we have a lot of turnover. I mean, the sport is expensive, and it's gotten more expensive year over year. I mean, look at the cost of ammo now. I mean, look at your fellow law enforcement guys. I mean, how many of them actually train on their own dime off the clock? It's unfortunate, but it's not a lot. So What we need to do is, with the advent of social media, is we need to hit social media hard. We need to steal from the presidential debate that Casual Shooter podcast did, David Radels. We need to figure out a way of making USPSA more of a home name. You know, more like as, oh yeah, trumpet ski. Everybody knows that because it's a good old American pastime. Why can't we make the guns a lot shorter and held with two hands in front of you? And instead of shooting an orange bird in the sky, you shoot brown paper. Like, let's make it that common. Now, I don't know. I don't have a clear-cut answer on how to do that, because we need to exhaust any and all options.
Yeah, I think new members seeing guys run around with tricked out carry optics or limited optics gun, while people say that it's not a real issue, but for someone who's new to shooting and just bought a brand new gun and is trying to get into the sport, they're feeling demoralized when, it's probably a lot of their shooting, but in the back of their mind, they're saying, well, of course I'm not winning because this guy's got, X, Y, and Z super heavy, crazy light trigger gun, and I have this stock gun that I bought with, 8-pound trigger. So, I mean, do we go back to what the original production was and then just have like again, it seems like we're going crazy with divisions. It's just my opinion. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I guess it becomes an equal opportunity thing. Well, you're going to find what works for you. But I just think that you dilute the whole thing. Remember, because when this whole sport started, we were just one division.
Yeah, there was one division called gun. I don't think diluting or dilution is going to be that much of an issue. I think it'll resolve itself. You're going to pick the gun that you like. You're going to pick the division you like, because every division, every platform, it changes what is important or what you focus on. I mean, you're going to shoot single stack or you're going to shoot production. The goal is going to get points over time, but your focus on how to minimize or maximize points or minimize time is going to be different. But if you want to go hide in a smaller division just because that tickles your pickle, I mean, you can go do that. SAS, the Cowboy Action, they had their nationals a few months ago. They had 800 some odd shooters competing in, I think, like 14 different divisions. It's not a question of dilution. It's the question of making it good enough to have people show up, or making it a household name. I mean, if we had 200,000 members, we'd fill out all the nationals because somebody's going to find what they want to do. But we've got less than 40. So we just got to figure it out that way. A big way of bringing people in is Steel Challenge. I mean, I've seen you bring coworkers to the range. First time they compete, they get something handed to them on a plate, and they never show up again. They don't know the sport. They don't know what the point of the sport is or the point of the course is. It can be overwhelming. I mean, I was overwhelmed in the beginning, but I was hooked. Steel Challenge is a great intro sport, and it's part of our organization. Let's utilize it. Let's advertise it. I mean, there's no Scholastic Action Steel any longer. Why doesn't Steel Challenge step into that role that they used to fill? Let's bring in juniors. Let's hardcore advertise, And yeah, we have the Mike Voigt Junior Shooter Fund, but it's not really advertised. And how does it get managed? Like, let's do something that can bring in our future to the sport. And I think the only way to do that is bring in juniors and bring in parents that are willing to do that. I mean, like, most 30s, 40s, they've got young kids. What are they going to choose? Staying at home on their weekend, their 1 day off, their 2 days off, with their kids, or hey, I'm going to go spend 9 hours on the range to shoot 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes. You're going to lose those guys. Now, if it can be a family event, that's a whole different story. That's a whole different ballgame. So I think bringing in juniors is a really big thing. You know, hey, let's do some father-son time, daddy-daughter time, well, mother-son time, whatever it is. Let's just bring families out to the range, bring juniors out on the range, and give them a reason to stay in it.
Just a couple questions, and I'll bring in some questions from the chat. I don't know if this is ever going to go anywhere, and I really don't know how it can be kept accurate. But the whole, almost in every sport we have now, you do have the ability to watch a video replay, and everyone is filming everything at these matches. And it is this something that you think USPSA can get into? Is, say you're called on something and you're like, well, can we just check the video on that? I know that's going to probably, there's got to be, we have a lot of people here. We have a lot of people with great ideas. There's got to be a way to speed that process up, but still allow some sort of review.
So USPSA does not allow video review at all. IPSC allows it in arbitration. So that's one of the differences in our rule books. Fortunately, the board of directors is in charge of NROI policies. So if this is something that the organization and the membership feels strongly about, which I know being on the range, I've had a lot of different calls called on me, some valid, some not. And I usually just say, yeah, let's go, whatever, it's fine. But I know I'm not out to win nationals. I'm in a totally different setup than, let's say, Nils or Christian or Max or JJ. Those guys, JJ's lost more than once, less than 1 point. And our nationals is getting that much closer and closer. That every little mistake and every little missed call causes 1, 2, 3 different placements at a national event. Is it the future? Probably. We just need to figure out a way of introducing it into our rule set in such a manner that it won't bog down a match, because, hey, you're going to get that guy that's going to argue every little call. And how do you handle that? How do you handle the infrastructure at a match? How do you handle the staff? How do you handle the logistics of it? Where you might have the one guy who's like, yeah, I'm arguing every single little thing. I'm going to step up to the line, and then I'm going to set up 8 different cameras and do that. Like, yes, we have to step into, technology and today's standard. But how do we do it, and how do we introduce it, minimizing the logistical? That's what my take is. Should it be like case by case? Hey, if you want to use it and it needs to go to arbitration like IPSC, yeah, put up your $100. That's a barrier of entry for that decision. If you're going to take up that much time, that's what it might cost you. If you win, you get it back. If you lose $100. Is that fair to everyone? Probably not. I mean, you know as well as I do that you see any and all kinds in this sport. Some have a little more disposable income than others, and it shouldn't be pay to play, but sometimes it has to be.
Well, I've been, like I said, I started in 2011, and in 2011, everything was done by paper. You go to Area 6, and you had all this paperwork you had to fill out and do and everything, and now everything's done by tablet. So I think we can do it. I think we put people on the moon. I think we have the ability to eventually get through this. So, all right. What I'm going to do is
not to cut you off on that.
Sure.
But we all use a tablet, and we all use the software. There are scoring softwares out there, and there's other people designing different scoring systems that may or may not be the future, or removing the ROs, the onus on the RO. Like, hey, if you could take a picture of a target, and AI or a scoring system will auto score that for you. I mean, what was it? Is Don't Deuce Me? What was it? For Patrick? Yeah, I think his name was Patrick. Yeah, Don't Deuce Me. He was somebody from here in Area 6 that an RO that would add time to people's.
I remember that years ago. Yeah.
So it's now that we have like smart timers that are linking with Bluetooth. I mean, technology's come a long way. I mean, from when you and I remember like having to sit there and do scores, before publishing them. It was WinMS was a terrible program. But that's the name of the game, and we've been we're dinosaurs now, but we're trying to stick with the future.
All right.
But yeah, sorry to cut you up on that, but
no, not at all. All right. So I just want to bring in a couple of these questions and give the people who. So the first one is from Steve O. You know him. He's wanting to know if that is technically a mustache. I don't know. I think it's close to a mustache. I know that's not real. He does have a serious question though.
I don't know, man. It's not a mustache. It's a whole thing. I can't. I'm not law enforcement. I can't pull off the mustache.
He does say though that time is valuable. Do you see a way to speed up matches? A 2-day weekend to shoot 10 minutes gets old.
So everybody wants to shoot. I mean, you see some of these matches, they sell out in a matter of minutes. I mean, Ipswich Nationals this year, they were able to, at open registration, they had, I think, an 11-minute website crash. Half the people got in, and the people that couldn't, they refresh as much as they wanted to, but it sold out in a matter of minutes. I think it was like 300 or 400 different people trying to get 60 slots or something like that. It's crazy. So it's one of the reasons why I've been, shooting in a lot different places and a lot of different types of matches and shooting events. It's when you're getting on when you shoot a USPSA match and you get like 16 people on a squad, it just drags. One of the things that I loved about Georgia State was you shoot 10 stages in about 4.5 hours in a half-day format, but you had 7 people on a squad. That's great, or you shoot the same amount of stages in 2 days because you have 16, 17, 18 people on a squad. We just need to figure out a way of minimizing the amount of time spent away. I mean, Steve used to camp out on the range. I mean, he would take his van out, and he sometimes would bring the family out. That's how he was able to justify it. Which brings us back to the statement that I made earlier. It's make it a family event. Bring your family out, enjoy it, do all that stuff. But when we have this much demand, supply needs to go up. And it's just not there right
now. So Janet asks, there are already differences in divisions, rules, shooting styles, and we must be in good standing with USPSA to compete in IPSC. And to add, have you ever entertained having IPSC and USPSA be separate entities? Good question, Janet.
Okay, so there's nothing that says that you cannot have two separate entities. All right. The IPSC charter states that every region will have an organization in charge. Now, it just so happens that USPSA is the US-based regional affiliate for IPSC. Now, there is nothing that says that the regional director doesn't have to disallow any other organization running IPSC matches. So hypothetically, let's say Janet wants to start a new shooting sport, a new organization in the US. As long as the regional director allows Janet and her organization to run IPSC matches, then she can do a Janet's IPSC, right? And if Janet's IPSC gets big enough, they can petition the IPSC Executive Council to turn over the regional affiliate from USPSA to Janet's IPSC. It's written in the IPSC charter. So there is a policy for that. And it has happened before because, smaller regions have had falling out with the executives in charge of their little area. And they've said, hey, we don't like your group. We don't like your policies. You guys are doing something different. We're going to do our own thing and, run it this way. I mean, you see it with sections, you see it with local clubs all the time. I mean, if you have, let's say Janet is shooting at Janet's ladies only shooting sport on Wednesdays, and then somebody else comes in and says, Janet, I don't like how you're running this organization. I don't like how you're running this match. I'm going to run my own match on Thursdays. There's nothing to stop, Jimmy from putting on a match on Thursdays next to Janet's Wednesday match. So there's ways to do it if you wanted to. I don't think that there is another organization in the US that is as equipped to handle IPSC in the US. We've had this IPS match in the country since I've been shooting, other than 3 matches. So in a decade, there's been 3 other matches that I can think of. I don't see why we should have 2 unique organizations running those events. Now, are the sports different? Yes. But should we have 2 individual organizations running them? I think we're good and we're more than well equipped enough to handle it, which we have been for 30 some odd years.
Okay. Joseph asks, would you support moving headquarters to a pro Second Amendment state? Because right now it's in Washington, which has its issues.
So the thing with headquarters is an issue. We technically don't have a headquarters because we don't have a home office any longer. The bylaws were changed. But we still have we still have the rental on the building itself, even though it's unoccupied. In this day and age, do we need a home office? I think so. But with the advent of, what we're doing right now, I mean, from me to you, I think it's not even 10 minutes to me to get to your place, but it's easier to just do this. Do we need a home office? I don't think so. Should we have a home office? I do. Should it be in one of the non-pro Second Amendment states? Yeah, no. It's been a mistake to have it in Washington. I wouldn't want it in Colorado, New York, New Jersey, California. I wouldn't want it in any of those places. Let's support the governments that support us.
I like that. All right. With that, I think we ran a little long, which is fine. And I'm sure there are people who have more questions for you, Luigi. If someone does have questions for you and they want to reach out, I'll link it in the show notes, but what is the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way to do it is just send me an email, and it's going to be dvc.luigi@gmail. I mean, the three tenets of IPSC shooting, dvc.luigi@gmail.
Great.
You can find me on social media. You've linked it already. It's Lil Bunny Foo Foo. Yeah, it's a funny name. But I've been using that name as a online media presence for 20 some odd years. It's stuck. But yeah, shoot me an email, send me a DM, comment on some random post and link me. Most people are going to have a way of getting a hold of my cell phone number. If you really search for the internet for it, you could probably find it. But most people know who I am in some way or another. They can get a hold of me. So yeah, reach out in any way. And I'm always down to have a conversation. Good, bad, indifferent. Just the only way we get better is communication. So bring it on.
I like that. And I wish you luck. I know the ballots can be sent in starting tomorrow, I believe, June 15th.
Yeah, so you're going to get an email from the election company that's going to have a link with a code on it, or you can just log into your USPSA account on the USPSA website, and they'll have a Vote Now button on there. So you can do it either way.
Outstanding. So if you are a USPSA member listening or watching to this, whether you vote for Luigi or not, please vote. That's important. Just like in any election, you got to vote. And if you're not into USPSA, please go ahead and look into it. Like Luigi said, I brought people out to Steel Challenge. I brought people out before. It's the best way to get better at shooting, and that's an important thing. So Luigi, I wish you lots of luck with the election, and I want to thank everybody who tuned in to the live portion of this. And I'll see you out on the range.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see you soon, and thanks for everything. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everything you do, because I mean, you do advertise and you do bring a lot to the shooting sports, not just USPSA.